Welcome to the LeapSheep Startup Builder Live Q&A. This is the ultimate space where founders come together and answer real startup questions and address real startup challenges. We dive into questions that keep you awake at night, uncover the lessons from our guests and founders and startup support experts, and of course, LeapSheep's own battle-tested startup builders who've guided hundreds of founders for over a decade to get customer traction, get revenue, and scale up. Hey everyone, I'm your host today. I'm Kirk Drage, the CEO and co-founder at LeapSheep. At LeapSheep, we're on a mission to flip that 95% failure rate by making expert, personalized startup building guidance accessible and affordable to founders everywhere around the world. We're just getting started on this journey, and we're excited to have you here. For founders that have joined, it's fabulous to have you join. If you've sent questions in before the show, thank you so much. We'll get to those during the show. And if you're joining us live on YouTube or LinkedIn, please put comments in as the show goes on and ask questions of me or of our fabulous guests that we've got coming up. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Dane Eldridge and Andy Graham, the dynamic co-founders of StackUp, a fast-growing technology platform that's helping leaders benchmark their tech maturity, uncover hidden risks, and get investor ready for growth. Dane kicked off his career as a developer before founding the award-winning software agency Formation Technologies. He bootstrapped it from the ground up into a 90-person Sydney-based powerhouse, recognised as one of Australia's best places to work. With a computer science background and a credential from the Australian Institute of Company Directors and hundreds of successful software projects delivered, Dane knows exactly what it takes to get a great result for fast-moving startups and scale-ups. Dane, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And Andy brings incredible 30 years of experience in technology, including more than 2 decades in senior executive roles across startups and scale-ups and ASX-listed companies. He's played a pivotal role in scaling SG Fleet to a $1.3 billion valuation and has led tech functions as a group CIO at Custom Fleet, an NAB division, and a CTO at Splend. His expertise spans all areas of the business: IT, cybersecurity, digital transformations, M&A, due diligence in particular. Together, you guys have started StackUp. You're on the journey. You're up to your necks in your tech rebuild, as we're going to get into today. Welcome to you both. It's awesome to have you on the show.
Great. Thanks, Kirk. Great to be here.
Let's jump straight into the story. I mean, you guys have got a fabulous, you're almost a dream team founder duo, I think. You've got Dane, you've been running, a pretty impressive agency for a long time. So, you know software back to front and the problem space that you're focused on. Andy, you're deep expert because you've been living it for so long. I mean, that probably sort of sums up some of the StackUp background, but give us a little color as to how you got started. What was the origin? How did you guys meet? How did you guys get together? I mean, huge change for you, Dane, moving off from running an agency to now a startup founder. Massive pivot. Maybe start with you, Andy. Just tell us a little bit about how you guys got together and what led you to this startup.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, mate. So my background, as you mentioned, I won't go through everything that you said, but 30 years in technology, 20 years as CIO and CTO, most of my career in automotive and financial services. And a big part of my role, or the roles that I've played over the years, was looking at businesses for acquisition or investment, ranging from a few $1 million up to a couple of $1 billion acquisition, and trying to assess the health of the tech function. It's always a challenge. You'd go in there and you'd need to go, how do I, as quickly as possible, determine if this has got it? Because obviously I was focused very much on tech. Other people would look at finance and operations and legal. And it'd be, how do I very quickly assess the health of the tech function? So in the absence of any guiding principles for that, which there are none realistically, there's lots of compliance frameworks. Yeah. But anyone that's done ISO 27001 will tell you with enough time, money and patience, anyone can get that. And that's not to show any disrespect to that. I'm a huge believer of ISO. I've been through it myself and led it. I've just led one successfully recently. But in the absence of any guiding framework, I developed my own. So I just came up with a bit of a playbook. This is what I look for when I go in and assess the tech function. And because I was a CIO myself with 100 odd people and a reasonable sized budget and a big responsibility for a global business, I was like, what keeps me awake at night? What do I need to look for that keeps me awake at night?
Yeah.
So developed a framework, applied it many times over the year, refined it, And then Dane and I, and how Dane and I got together, I was a customer of Dane for many years. His business provided development augmentation for my software team.
Yeah, right.
Our own software developers, but then when we needed support and we were ramping up for projects, we'd use Formation for that. So we developed a really good relationship over the years and kept in touch. And then probably about 2 years ago, and this is, I guess, the origin story. There you go, it's perfect. A couple of years ago, we were sitting in Surrey Hills in a cafe talking about the future, and I was saying, look, this is what I've been doing, because obviously he knew what I'd been doing to an extent, but not really the detail of what I'd been doing. So, look, this is what I've been doing throughout my career. I think there's something in this in terms of a business that you can do, but it's very services business, right? You've got to go in as humans. It's not scalable. It's not that easy to do, and you need specialist expertise.
Yeah.
Because you can't just bring somebody off the street.
What time frame was this?
This was about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years, something like that.
Yeah, right. So
and
post our ChatGPT moment, but before we really understood what was possible.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But it was at a point in my career where I was like, I really want to have a crack at building something myself, having a go at doing it. Because I've been working in corporate institutional world for my entire career practically.
Yeah.
So I kind of said to Dane, look, this is what I do. And he said, well, look, I've got this idea called StackUp. And I think there's a way in which we can compare businesses to one another and tech functions and how they stack up. And of course, my ego says, well, you can't take my expertise and apply that to a platform. I'm far too valuable for that. Well, it turns out you can. And the reason that you can is it's very formulaic, rules-based. And as long as you apply the logic and the principles and put the thought into it, then you can turn it into a platform, as I say, which is what we did. So that was kind of 2.5 years ago.
I'm just going to pause you there because I want to bring Dane in. And as a software agency, I know you've heard 1,000 pitches. Right? People come into you and say, "I've got this great idea for a product. We've got to build it." And I'd love to hear your little bit about your backstory up to the same point, and then on Andy's comment, how did you go? Yeah, this actually could be a thing.
Yeah. So I think over the years, obviously, been involved in hundreds of software projects for big corporates right down to startups. And you just see, I think one of my pieces of frustration was seeing companies overbuilding. So just building too much, not proving something and then scaling it out. And also just, we were involved in a lot of rescue projects. So we'd get pulled in to solve something after the fact, and the company had already blown, $1 million on a build that didn't work, and they were kind of starting from scratch, and that's pretty frustrating and painful for all of the leaders that are involved. So, kind of my thinking was, is there a way to proactively avoid some of those things by actually having some objective data on it? Because you would meet some CTOs that were getting incredible kudos for doing not very much on huge budgets, and other ones achieving miracles on a shoestring and not getting any credit. And there was just no objective way to kind of compare.
That's fascinating. So you were kind of feeling some of the pain that Andy was kind of fixing.
That's it. That's it. And just seeing people suffer from what were ultimately, avoidable mistakes, but fixing them after the fact. Is helpful, but not the optimal solution. So. And again, I was keen to do like Andy to build a product that has scale potential to solve that problem more broadly than you can with a service. So
So Andy, keep going with your story about how do you scale? How do you scale this? This consulting, right? It's the classic kind of consulting gig.
That's it.
Where you're an expert in a particular area, you come in, you do your thing. But you want to turn that into software now. Tell us about that.
That's it. So then we kind of made the decision, 18 months ago. Again, we got together in the same cafe in Surrey Hills and said, let's pull the trigger, let's build a product, and away we go. And then over the last 18 months, Dane still had Formation. I've still had a few other bits and pieces, to the extent now where we're both, pretty much going full time with StackUp. So, but over that journey, we talked about the model, how best to do it. We built a very, very lean MVP using a basic survey with materials delivered via email, so a PDF report.
And what was your vision back then? Is your sort of vision of what's possible changed as the technology?
100%, absolutely. Yeah, we've learned so much over the last 12 months. It's been quite the journey, and where we are today, again, which we knew going into it. We both advised startups and scale-ups over the years, so we're kind of like, we've got to take our own medicine here, and for the things that we've told other people to do, we should do that. So a lot of what we've done is adapt and refine, listen, take the feedback, don't take everything and then just do it, of course, because take it all and do everything deliberately, with an end goal in mind. So we both said 12 months ago we don't think in 12 months we will be anywhere close to where we are today.
Yeah.
And the concept is the same, but the execution is completely different.
Different, yeah.
As at today.
So what are the biggest sort of what's the right way to phrase this? Misaligned expectations, or things that you thought were going to happen that didn't happen, and learnings that you've had along the way?
Dane, I'll let you take that one first.
Yeah, look, I'll share one of them that I think is particularly relevant to founders. I think one of the things that we expected was that there'd be a lot of care from investors about sort of tech foundations and tech due diligence in particular. And what we've found is some of them really don't care. It is literally a box ticking exercise, or they don't even do it at all. They just assume that it's fine. So that's been really interesting. I think at the smaller end of the market, early stage VC, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The larger side of the market, I think that absolutely doesn't make sense, and I think it'll change over time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of the people making sort of private equity investment decisions and the like are often from legal and finance backgrounds. So there's a lot of legal DD, finance DD, but not so much tech DD, which the whole underpins the whole business. So
and for me, that just elaborate on that slightly, and that's where I get rather passionate, because I've sat in the chair and I know what happens if you don't do these things well. It's slower innovation, it's outages, it's project blowout, it's budget blowout. There's so many implications that at the end of the day, the executive team see it at the very end of the process. They go, why is that project taking 6 months longer and the budget's now overrun? It's like, well, you could have prevented all of that. Prevention is much better than cure in technology, right? So how do you prevent all of that? And that's what we're trying to do, is you can prevent it. And if you're doing a due diligence, technology underpins businesses nowadays, whether people like it or not. That's just the reality of where the world is. So you've got to place a lot of significance and focus on tech. And that's, it's been a real eye-opener, which I kind of knew because I'd been part of that world where I was always brought in last, by the way. So it was, they'd spend all this time and effort on legal, all this time and effort on financial, all this time and effort on operational. And they say, oh, by the way, can you come in and do a quick tech DD?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. And then in one case, one example, I came in and found this big problem with the synergies and the costs around it. And I'm like, guys, this is going to be like a multi-million-dollar exercise to do this piece of work. Okay. But have you factored it into the synergies? Nope. All right. Well, we probably should, because it's an important and material part of the deal, and it's what will make it successful post acquisition. So that's been it's been interesting. I kind of knew, but I didn't realize to the extent that tech was just a bit of a box ticking exercise.
Yeah, fascinating. And Dane, for you, having run so many projects, what part of the process you've been on so far? What's happened differently, or what have you learned about the process of validating the market and validating your early prototypes? Because you must have done that a lot in the past. What's it like doing yourself this time? What have you learned?
Yeah, so I think the mum test is, I'm sure you're probably familiar with that book. Just provides some wonderful guidance around the questions to ask and the way to ask those questions, so that you don't get really friendly, well-intentioned but unhelpful feedback from people. I think that's been super useful. So just asking questions in a way that refers to past behaviour or commitments that they make to action going forward, as opposed to opinions on things or their general thoughts on a thing. I think that's just good fundamental practice. Look, a lot of the principles are still the same, just the tooling is different and faster, so you can build a lot more quickly. I think, like I said,
the overall validation and prototyping process hasn't changed, but it's the individual sort of steps that have changed how we're doing that with the different tools and technologies.
Yeah, I think what's changed with the prototyping is you can show people now, whereas previously you'd explain and you give a document and say, this is what we're thinking, and I'll explain it. Now you can literally, and I've been doing some work with somebody recently, and they've got an idea for something, and they've literally just spun up a prototype. Within 24 hours, they've just gone, throw my idea in, get a prototype, and now they're validating that with some customers, going, this is it visually. And I always found, picture tells 1,000 words. It's always been the case. If you can put something in front of people that is actually what they're going to get, try and explain in advance and show it. And well, we think it'll do that, but it's hard for people to visualize when you actually show them a screen, and that's what you'll click on, and that's what you'll see. It's like, oh wow, can you just add that to it and change that and do that? And it's like, that's a much different conversation, you know?
Those iteration loops, like if you're briefing a developer or development agency with a big briefing document, and then they spend a couple of days doing it and they send it back and it's not quite right, so you give them some feedback and then they're not available, so it's another day. Instead of that, if you're just doing it in real time on screen, you can kind of use that prototype to then brief the developer if you'd like to, but you're briefing them with a mostly finished product as opposed to a description of words. And I think, it just changes that iteration cycle from days to seconds, meaning you're just able to do it much faster.
So have you ended up doing a lot more iteration cycles, or have you gone faster through the stages?
Both. So, if we were building our platform, a few years back, the build time would have been 10 to 20x the time frame, and the outcome would have been so much more expensive, so much slower. Whereas we can be, just multiple release cycles, multiple iterations, and the product evolves so much faster. I think the flip side to that is you don't want to get stuck into just doing that far too much and ignoring your customers and not getting feedback. That's a trap to look out for, because it is so addictive to build this cool new thing, but you need to keep validating.
But what I would say is that what's important for us and what the value that we bring is the experience. For me, the guiding principles is how you do this is exactly the same as it was when I started in tech in 1995. Nothing's changed. Change management, project management, governance. That you've got to make sure that the guardrails are there. So when we do something now, we do it quickly, but we do it we do it deliberately, and we do it conscious of what does this mean for the future. And sometimes you make decisions, we know this is technical debt, like we know that we're going to have to replace this, but we do it eyes wide open, and we know that that's the case, versus just doing it. And, I'm sure there's a lot of hobbyists out there that are jumping on and building stuff that it's going to break pretty quickly, and then it's going to be rebuilt. Whereas we're doing it in a way that says, well, we know that bit's sustainable. We know that bit's probably need to be replaced over time, but that's fine. That's a conscious decision that we're making. So the same principles still apply.
I'd love to pick up on that. You used the phrase technical debt, which I love. I love when founders talk about that, because that's a great conversation to sort of unpack. I'm really interested, Dane, from your perspective. How has your thinking around technical debt evolved over time, particularly recently with AI and the way tech stacks are going?
Oh, look, I think the principles are still the same. You just want every decision around technical debt to be a conscious one, firstly. But I think the implications of technical debt now are probably slightly less in some ways, provided you're secure. The ability to unplug a particular module and replace it with something else quite rapidly has never been as easy as it is now. So the implications, particularly for early stage startups, are not where they once were. If you're building everything from scratch and it's this huge thing, you lose that and you've just lost 500K. It's very different now with sort of rapid development tools and the like, and just the modular nature of being able to plug into a bunch of APIs to get things done. I
feel like there's been this sort of tension between technical debt and the iteration. If you think about the sort of design thinking kind of crowd, and you think about the technology architects, there's sort of friction there where the technology architects are like, no, we don't want to build things too many times. That's technical debt. I want to do it once right the first time, and the designers are like, no, we have to iterate and understand what the customer wants. I feel like we're sort of moving into this magical time where that tension is starting to disappear because the technology is helping us do that.
For me, I mean, the technical debt, it's always an interesting conversation because people get bogged down in suboptimal code and suboptimal this. But my view on that particular, you got to look at it with a commercial mindset. So what does this commercially mean for the business? Not whether it's the right way of coding something or not. Does it work? Is it secure? Yep. So why do you need to change it? If you're making money and it's giving you the right commercial outcome, who cares if it's 500,000 lines of code instead of 300,000? Like if it's not impacting anything, then don't do it. Whereas I do find that a lot of tech, particularly CTOs who have come up through the software engineering space, they struggle to translate that technical to commercial outcomes, and then get bogged down with building perfect code as opposed to, is it going to make us more money or save us more money? That's it, simply it.
I think you always want to beware premature optimization.
Yeah.
Yes, this thing that you've just built, it'll scale to 6 million concurrent users, but you've got 2 users and they don't really care about what you've built. And there's 12 other features that you should be building instead of optimizing that thing. So beware premature optimization. And I think just that nail it, then scale it. Right? Like
so
get yourself to the next milestone. You can optimize these things, but nail it, then scale it.
Yeah, 100%. I love that Elon Musk kind of truism, which is the best way to optimize something is to get rid of it too. Like you realize that some things you think are really important, and you start working in customer land, and it's like, we've done some analysis and no one's actually used that feature for 6 months, right? And we can get rid of that feature. That's a good one. But
his whole 5 rules for that optimization piece are
awesome. Gold, right? Absolute gold.
Yeah.
But to your point, Andy, I think it's absolutely spot on that you need to look at your product company through the commercial lens, because you're not actually building a product, you're building a business model. That's the unit of success.
And what I do, so again, the practice that I've had with businesses is always have some kind of service inventory that lists out the services that you have, where you've got a bit of technical debt, and then the short, the medium, the longer term plan. So you've always got that vision of, okay, we know that this will get us to X, and then after X we need to do this. But you're doing it in a conscious way. Again, it's all about, I'll use the word deliberate many times here, but it's about doing it deliberately. And everything you do, and you've got a plan, right? And that's what we do with StackUp. We if you apply the StackUp framework to your business, it may be that you get a score of say 40 out of 100. That's good for where you are at your stage in your journey. But what you now have is a roadmap to say, when we get to this certain point and you define those triggers, we know we're going to need to do this and add this bit of security and this bit of level of sophistication and maturity. But at least you've got it mapped out, and you're not just kind of going, oh, we better do this now, and should we do it yet? And it's just kind of having that plan and mapped out. And that's one of the things I do find with startups, particularly that haven't got the experience that Dane and I have got, is just not having that ability to plan into the future and visualize where they're going to get, if they are successful. And everyone says, oh, well, we'll worry about that when we get there. But I've seen businesses that they get there and then they go, we've got to rebuild the entire tech stack. There's one business many years ago, and it took them 12 months to completely replace the tech stack because they just made really bad decisions along the way, but they didn't make those decisions consciously. They were just going too quickly and making them and not thinking about, well, what if we're successful? And they were hugely successful, but I won't mention who it was, but they've been massively successful. And then 12 months to rebuild the entire thing, millions of dollars of expense, which could have been avoided if they just made conscious decisions early. It's much easier to move this ship when it's a very small, nimble speedboat than it is when it's this giant container and you want to move something. It's like, not that easy. And I've been there, right? I've been my career. It's an interesting.
That conscious, deliberate, that's really important. I often use the word graceful when I'm talking to founders, because we obviously support founders to spend their resources radically better and make more traction. One thing we can't do is guarantee success, because all we can do is run the experiment. Our value proposition is running the experiment a lot cheaper with a lot less risk, and perhaps running better experiments and pointing in the right direction. But if you're going to fail, you want to fail gracefully. You don't want to fail. Like when scientists, I think about scientists that run experiments, they know a bunch of their experiments are going to fail, but that's not like a disaster, right? In business, we often run these experiments and we don't sort of consciously make all these decisions, and so you end up in these horrible situations. And I think we need better language to describe what you're talking about there from a marketing point of view, to educate people earlier.
That whole, that's one of the things I actually struggle with, that when people say it, fail fast. It's not failing, because it's a learning, right? It's not, you're not failing, you're actually doing it. And if you're doing it deliberately, it's a learning, it's not a failure.
And it should be learning gracefully too. It shouldn't. It shouldn't be like a whole bunch of resources and I'll learn a bunch of stuff, but I need to take 6 months off because of burnout. I wanted to pick up on what you were saying about you were forced in your role to develop a system to assess the tech function. And you develop the skill and experience. You've done that over many years. Whenever you become an expert in an area, you start to move away from the average person. The language you use starts to be different. The way you think about problems is different. And when you come to the point where you now want to build a product company and productize that, having done this many times with many founders that are in this position, what's been your learnings? Is it been really hard to sort of document and codify a lot of stuff that was sort of intuitive? What was your expectation about how much of this you could do? Just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. I never really thought about this too much, but what I would say is not doing the journey alone, having Dane.
Yeah.
The benefit of Dane and I always say this too much, a bit like yin and yang. So I come from this corporate institutional background where, you know, I was brought up through National Australia Bank and a very risk lens on everything. So I apply risk. I'm a bit more conservative.
You've got a policy for everything.
Yeah, that's it. So I kind of come into everything with a bit like, oh, what if we do that? What about this? And what about that? And if we don't do that, and it's like, you know, sometimes, you know, I have a tendency to, you know, not let the whole don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And I'm sometimes like, let's just make it that little bit better. Whereas Dane brings that, you know, he's one of those amazing guys that's never really worked for anybody else, run his own business, and you know, it's like, oh hell you, and never had to go and kowtow to anybody. So he kind of brings that. I've got the experience and the knowledge, and then what he'll do is he'll look at it through his lens and go, that's interesting. And like, you know, the genesis of the platform, he said, you know, we can turn that into a platform. And my immediate response is, no, you can't do that. I'm far too valuable. It's that. And so we have that consistently. Every conversation we have, we just bring different lenses. You know, Dane brings that entrepreneurial CEO, run his own business. He's had to, you know, sweat and grind for 23 years in a services business, which I've watched, right? And it's really, really hard. Where I've come from, that secure, regular salary, all good bonuses, you know, nice share scheme, nice share options. So we've kind of those two different lenses. So when I come at it with this and this is my experience and this is how we used to do it, he'll go, well, that's interesting. What about if we do this and this and this? So what I would say in the answer to that is I wouldn't have been able to do this on my own. I think it is the key to that. My personality type, the way my brain works.
Yeah. So
what Dane brings is complementary to support the pieces that I wouldn't have done. He looks at it through a different lens, and I hope, you know, vice versa. It works both ways, right? So so I think hopefully I've answered your question. But one piece of advice that I'd give to anybody who is thinking about starting up on their own, it's really hard to try and do it on your own. Like having somebody there, because, you know, when I'm up, Dane might be down. When I'm down, Dane might be up, and it's you just need people. Like yesterday, we had a particularly, you know, there's a few things yesterday that are a bit rough, and Dane's up, I'm a bit like, a bit flat, and it's good to have somebody alongside you. So not answering your question at all, but another piece of advice that I would give to startups is doing it on your own is really hard. So if you can, try and have someone alongside you for the journey.
It's great to have those, you know, different complementary strengths and mindset perspectives, and I think, you know, that's a big part of what you're saying. It's not only skill sets, it's mindsets. Radically different mindsets. And
to kind of close out the answer to the question, so what that allows us to do is codify. So I'll just go, this is what I used to do, blah 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 blah, and I do that and I do that, and it'll say, okay, well, we could probably make that into that and structure it like that. Oh, that's interesting. Because I don't think of it that way, because it's kind of my lizard brain just kicks in and goes, but that's just the way I've always done it, right? And that's just how it works. Whereas he just looks at it through his fresh lens and goes, well, you could actually codify that. And
I think that perspective, like Andy's kind of got the CTO and investor lens, and I've kind of got the CEO and director lens. And so it's kind of looking at the same problem, but from different angles. And how
do you not kill each other with your different perspectives?
Well, it's been pretty good so far. I don't think we've had too many debates.
I think there's a healthy respect for the knowledge that each other brings. Like anything that we've argued about, they've been good arguments where you get to a more productive outcome as a result. And it's pretty fair that you're disagreeing on many things. Most times, Andy will have more experience in an area, so we defer to him. Or I'll have more experience in another area, and he'll defer to me. There's kind of probably just
But there's also things that I know if Dane's particularly passionate, I'm going, okay, I'm not, you know, he is that passionate about it, which means instinctively and subconsciously he believes in it so much. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need an explanation. I go, okay, I'm backing him on this one, because I can just see how much he believes in that, and vice versa. So I mean, there's a few things we debate, but I must admit, over the last 18 months we've been doing this, there's been very few points where we've gone, hang on, no, we're not aligned here. In fact, probably count them on one hand if I only had two fingers. As that's happened, you know.
Yeah, that's just so valuable. Yeah, I know I'm the same with Catherine, my co-founder. It's very complementary skill sets, and it's so useful to like say something, and she goes, "Oh, what you really mean is this." And I'm like, that's what I said.
That's it, 100%. Yeah, it's like, no, but that's exactly what I said. It's like, no, you didn't. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. But for me, and for me, the important part for that is a phone call, and this is what I've tried to. Anyone that's worked for me over the years, which has been many people, I say if there's a point of contention or a point that you think there's a lack of alignment, never try and solve it writing it down in an email or a message. Pick up the phone, talk to, because what you'll find is within about 15 seconds, you go, oh, that's what you meant. Okay, cool. Versus an email where you lose that emotion, you go, oh no, you're right, I'm right, you're wrong, right. Phone call, 15 seconds, right, cool, got it, let's move on. And it just saves all that angst and iteration of writing and getting angry and doing all that stuff.
1,000%. Yeah, that's so true. That's such good advice.
But that's just a general advice to anybody in business, right?
Yeah.
Just pick up the phone if there's any contention, because words can sometimes be taken the wrong way.
Yeah, it took me about 10 years longer to learn that than it should have.
I think it's good as 90% of comms is not the words you use, it's body language, it's the tone, it's all the context around.
But it's a particular problem in tech. Again, I've been in tech my entire career. It's a particular problem because the techies are more comfortable with sitting on Slack or sitting on Teams and writing messages than picking up a phone or getting on a video call. I say it does that. I do find that does create a lot of tension and completely unnecessary tension if they're just sat together. And hybrid work and everyone working remotely just makes it even worse.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, like that was one of the realizations around our voice agents that we put into the platform as well, is just the value of a conversation in kind of uncovering really useful information.
Totally. So I want to talk about sort of the product now. We've talked a lot about sort of the problem space and your background and those sort of things. One of the things I find with founders is it's always challenging to scope the product to start with. Like, the problem space, and the problem space is usually far bigger than you've got the technical resources or should even attempt to fix. So how have you thought about that scoping for what's the right problems to solve and what technology can be brought to bear? Because the perfect product is a combination of a really painful problem rather, that a customer is willing to pay to have solved because the current options are not so good. But also on the technology side, there's got to be some sort of price performance improvements in technology to make building that thing have a radically better outcome. How have you sort of managed that tension?
When we launched our MVP way back, I think it was super simplistic. It's just what's the smallest unit that a customer is going to get sufficient value from that they'll pay for. So it's kind of that minimum viable commercial product. Knowing that that's not going to be the ultimate solution, not the ultimate product, but if you can solve for that, that earns you the right to then get a bunch of useful feedback from customers and then iterate and build and grow, the broader product vision over time. But I think you want to earn that right rather than trying to just do that day one.
Yeah, 100%. And did you? How did you validate that? I love the commercial MVP sort of aspect. How did you validate that people are willing to pay for that?
Yeah, so the journey, to go right back to the start of the journey, October, we launched that MVP, which was a survey with materials delivered via email, which was the report, but a very valuable report. The output was more important than the input, if that makes sense, because what you got and how we synthesized the input into something that anybody could interpret, read, and learn from, whether it be your tech leader, your non-tech leaders, your board, your investors, whoever it may be. So we very quickly kind of deployed, proved appetite to pay. So we got revenue very quickly, and then we made the decision, okay, there's appetite here. We know we've got something that people are willing to pay for. We're solving a problem. So now let's focus on, because this market is huge, right? If you think about it, it's any tech function in the world. Any industry, anything, because the foundations are the same, right? Project management, governance, data security, privacy, it applies. And I know this because I've done due diligence across many industries, many countries. So it's like, so we started with this massive, wide network of, well, we can apply this to any business in the world. Like, it's probably a bit big. We need to narrow that down. So we kind of proved appetite to willingness to pay in the first sort of 3 months. Got some revenue, and then
you built. Sorry to interrupt you, but you built what I would describe as a Wizard of Oz or a concierge kind of experience. So it was more human centric than a scalable solution can be. But
it was still automated. So it wasn't as sophisticated or as elegant as what we've got now, but it was scalable and it did a job. But
as general advice, though, I think that curation and the Wizard of Oz approach is not a bad idea generally.
Yeah,
I think it just, for us in this case, it was so easy to automate that it
exactly. Yeah, that's it.
But I think that is good guidance for founders generally.
Yes, yeah, but the ease of automation for us meant that we could kind of do something quite quickly that was scalable. Albeit we knew that at some point we would turn it into a full SaaS solution. So that was kind of the back end of 24, and then early 2025. Once you get back from the usual Australia long summer and what have you, we went, okay, so let's now determine the market we're going after, the messaging, and the partnership models. So we've now got 60 partners on the StackUp in the StackUp community, and what we identified was people like, say cybersecurity partners that are a bit too far down the chain to introduce StackUp into their customer base, whereas managed service providers are a good sweet spot for us, because what we do is surface pain points for them to go in and solve. We've got private equity firms who are doing due diligence, or they've got portfolio companies where they want to monitor the health. We've got VCs who are doing the same thing. So what we did is we spent then a lot of time speaking to people, understand the market, testing the product in those markets, testing the product in those areas. We tried a bit of global in the US and in the UK and Dubai, and went, okay, they kind of seems to work regardless of where you are in the world. So we narrowed down the messaging, narrowed down the focus, got the partnership, got the go-to-market strategy, and then we pulled the trigger on building the actual platform and raising capital. But there's been a lot of research. I mean, a lot of conversations, I'd say, between Dane and I, man. The number of conversations we've had with people over the last 12 months is there's hundreds. And again, advice to founders: speak to people. You're not going to build anything useful if you're just sitting in a room with your lab coat on and your Superman t-shirt saying, I'm amazing, I'm going to build something and everyone's just going to use it. Build it and they will come. No, they won't. You've got to build a network. You've got to get out there. You've got to speak to people. And it's hard.
Amazing the number of the number of different types of problems that a customer conversation solves. Whatever type of problem you're experiencing, often that gives you the North Star.
That's a really good point. It's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that before. It's lots of different problems that customer conversation solves.
And even now we get, like, we've got some doing some beta testing at the moment, and someone yesterday raised something, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I just never thought about that. It's just an amazing idea for the product. And if we hadn't been speaking to people, you just wouldn't elicit or ask them for feedback. But Dane and I are both, we're big enough, old enough, ugly enough to go. We can take. You give it to us, both barrels. It's good. We want that, right? That's good. The good, the bad, and everything in between. But we take everything, we ingest it, and we say, is that useful? Is that something we want to be part of the product? Yes or no? But again, I find a lot of people just don't do that. They kind of go, don't call my baby ugly. You got to learn from this, and you got to refine, and you got to go to where the market is, not where you are.
100%. That's one of the things that we say to founders is conversation velocity is one of your main metrics. The more conversations you're having for whatever time you've got, capacity, the more successful you're going to be.
And the challenge you get with tech people generally, and I put myself well and truly in this category, is typically introvert, antisocial, may not want to have conversations. Just got to get over it and do it. If you want to be successful, you've got to do it. I mean, look, between Dane and I, we both don't mind a conversation with people, so it works well. But there's a lot that, again, we've worked with who just go, I don't really want to speak to anybody. It's like, well, I'm not sure how successful it's going to be. If you've got a co-founder who does that, then that's great. But if you don't, then it's not going to end well.
Really,
I think one of the surprise learnings that we've probably had as well, or at least that I've had, maybe you less so, Andy, but was just that a lot of tech leaders, or some tech leaders at least, aren't that keen to find out where those opportunities for improvement lie. And I think that's a natural human tendency. Everyone's on a journey, everyone's improving, but everyone's got also that availability bias. The 12 things that I know about, I'm focused on, and I know 3 of them need to be improved. So I know exactly what's going on. There's these 6 other things that I've just never been exposed to that might kill the business next month. I don't think about that. And it's just a human natural thing, that availability bias. And I think that's where frameworks are really useful, because it does identify those unknown unknowns. And you might still decide not to act on that thing, but it's a conscious decision, as we were talking about earlier.
It's one thing I learned throughout my career. I always struggled to send bad news up the chain, because you don't want the reaction. But we had somebody a few weeks ago said, I don't want to do it because I don't want to open up a can of worms. And we said to him, but that's not your decision to make. So what he's telling us is, that you've got problems.
Yeah.
You've got a board, investors, shareholders. You've got all of these people who are the guys that are actually on the hook. These are the people on the hook, but you don't want to tell them that there's some tech disasters because you don't want to open a can of worms. Yeah, that's not a mature, sophisticated, and executive way of thinking about this.
Yeah.
This is about, yes, you might get a bit of heat. That's your job. That's what you get paid to do. You've got to tell them the good, the bad, and everything in between. And how you then communicate, that's the important part, right?
Yeah.
What's the commercial implication? Not, our support desk needs an upgrade because we just need some better software.
Yeah.
Right, so what you need it for is because we'll increase the velocity of the calls that we can handle. The customer experience will go up by X, which means revenue of Y. That's the way they've got to frame the conversation. But again, what we've found over the last sort of 12 months with a lot of these conversations is it's really hard for tech leaders to convert those conversations into a commercial outcome. And then in a lot of cases, they just don't want to have the conversation. And say, just bury it and say, we'll be right.
Yeah, and that a lot of what you're describing there, I think, comes down to when you think about ideal customer profile. When you start out on these journeys of having an idea to build a product and solve a problem, you're not necessarily thinking about all these human traits, right? And then you get into the market, and then suddenly you come across people that actually they have got the problem, but they are willfully blind or they're just not motivated or incented to solve the problem. So then they're no longer customers, and you've got to redefine your idea of an ideal customer profile, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
it's their emotional state, not just the rational, logical side of the product.
Yeah. So our primary buyer, and again, this is a learning for us. When we first started the business, we kind of figured that the IT leader or the senior leader, CTO, CIO, may be a buyer of the product, but we weren't too certain. What we've found over the last 12 months is the majority of the buyers of our product are the non-tech leaders, the ones that have that uncertainty about what's going on in tech. And then the tech leader will do, and they just say, we think the tech's okay, but we just want to do an independent, unbiased validation of that. And then they do, and then it gives them that. And in a lot of cases, the CTO says, I told you, you see, I was telling you this information all along, but they just couldn't communicate it in a way that the other could take, okay, I understand what that means commercially for us now. And that's what we bring, is that if you kind of think of that chasm between the tech and the non-tech from the communication, we just bridge that gap to go, okay, now I see. Now I see what you mean when you were telling us that this is going to be a disaster if we don't spend this money. Get it. You've got the money, let's fix it.
And I guess you'd have a materially different product if the tech community really was your ideal customer profile. The core wouldn't be different, but the way that you communicate it and the user experience and everything would be quite different.
Yeah. And we would build integration into lots of tools, and it'd be a very integrated product, whereas ours is very frictionless. It's SaaS. You can go in and you can start using it immediately. If we were selling into tech, we'd start doing deeper integrations into their tech, their stack and the source code, but that's not where we want to play. There's other tools out there that will do that, and that's not where we want to play.
Yeah.
And as a founder, like if I put my founder hat on and I'm a user of StackUp, it just removes that single point of failure. Even if I've got a really good tech leader, even the best tech leaders have, a gap somewhere. This gives you either I can sleep at night knowing that everything's under control, or I know where the gaps are and I know where we're acting on them.
Yeah.
Either way, that's a much healthier mental place for me to be as a founder as well.
Yeah.
So.
100%. Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. I'd love to go further down that, but let's move on to some other topics. I know the tech stack that you guys are using is changed massively. And you've been able to get some amazing value out of both the approach that you use to development and also the tools that are now available to automate things that perhaps weren't automatable just a little while ago. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you've learned in the experience?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so if I look at what I would do when I do an assessment on an organization and the tech function, there's two elements to it. There's the structured data and there's the unstructured data. So structured data, you go in, you ask a series of questions. Over the years, I obviously came up with a set of questions and curated that in such a way that helped us to build StackUp. And the way that we ask the questions, the way that they answer the questions, it's very carefully curated. There's dependencies. If you say yes to that and then no to that and yes to that, well, that's not good, because you should really be saying yes to all three, whatever it may be. So that's a fairly structured way of assessing. The most important part for us over the last 12 months, and this is where we spent a lot of time and effort, is the unstructured. So when I do an assessment on an organization, I do the structured part, but where I get most of the intelligence is the unstructured. It's the conversations, back to speaking to people. So I would go out and I speak to stakeholders and end users and go, oh, how are you going with this? And the best example would be the project status report, right? The watermelon, as someone told us a few weeks ago. I love
Yeah.
that phrase. Which is the project status report comes in, and this happened to me. This happened to me consistently over my career. You get the project status report, green, everything's awesome. Everyone's high-fiving each other. Tech team's like, yeah, we're awesome. We're the best. We're going to launch next week.
Yeah.
I go, okay, I'll go out and speak to a few people. Just want to see what's going on here. So you go out and you speak to Bob. Bob says, if we go live, we're in a whole world of pain. Sheila's on leave for the next 6 weeks, and she's been the chief tester for the whole thing, and she's the change champion and everything. And then you've got somebody else over here who's saying, we can't go live with this. No one's had any training. None of that appears in the status report, and if it does, it's kind of buried because no one wants to surface that to the top and say, oh, we're not going to hit our deadlines, folks, because we're not ready. So what I would do is go out and have those conversations and come back to, we've got some real problems here, folks. So you've got that structured and then you've got the unstructured. So what we've built is the AI calling agent, which is a technology that you probably couldn't do this 12 months ago because it wasn't at the level that it is today. So we've got these calling agents that will go out and have those conversations at scale and do what I would do manually, but you can do that hundreds of times simultaneously.
That's amazing, yeah.
And the quality of the conversations are phenomenal. I mean, yeah, I'm generally, as I said earlier on, I'm from a relatively conservative risk, with a risk lens. So I was a little skeptical about how good it would be. And I have to say that the quality of these voice conversations are fantastic. And the intel that you surface from that, because people, let the guard down a little, they'll have a conversation, and within a few seconds, you don't even realize you're speaking to an AI.
Yeah,
it's that good, and you just
walking the floor at scale, isn't it?
That's it. Walking the floor. That's the one. And it's harder to do now with hybrid and remote work post-COVID. It's even more important to have those conversations. So that's kind of the from an AI perspective, where we're really leveraging AI is that, and then ingesting that data and using AI to build intelligence and insights. And okay, well, this is what we think you should do as a result of that. 10 people said that the help desk is not responsive, everything takes too long. Okay, so we can identify now we've got a problem in the help desk. Let's surface that as something that we need to focus on, versus one person has got a complaint about the laptop, but it's 1 out of 100. You're going to get that. That's just life in technology.
Yeah.
And that's what AI has brought to us in terms of the capability that we didn't necessarily envisage as much as we did 12 months ago of where we are today.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. You got to be in the game, don't you, to have these opportunities? And I think that's
and build it, and try it
from the outside, but you can't execute on them if you're not in the game, right?
No. And build it, do it. Like that's again any advice to anyone. And I keep telling people, anyone that asks me, I said, try it. Yeah. You can spin these things up with. I mean, look, Dane and I have got technical background, so it's a little easier for us. But even with non-technical, just have a go. It's really not that difficult to sign up for these things. Like I think there's one that Dane was signed up for yesterday. It's $5 a month. Just to try something for $5 a month. 11 labs. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's fascinating. Can we move on to like growth and your journey? You're out for a capital raise. How are you now thinking? And what advice would you give to founders about the new world of capital raising, given all the discussion we've had about how much faster it is to do customer validation and doing these kind of quick tests? How are you guys now thinking about that and your experience?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we've been building out, as a result of all these customer conversations, we've got a backlog a mile long that's curated, prioritized, and ready to go. So we know that when we raise capital, we're going to be able to deploy it to execute against those things. So for us, the capital is, we can self-fund and continue, and that's fine. But the capital just enables us to go faster and not go faster in an aimless direction, but we've got some very specific things that we can execute against, both from a product perspective, but also from a go-to-market and marketing and that perspective. So I think being prepared and deliberate about what you're going to use that capital for gives you the confidence to even make the decision in the first place about whether you want to raise capital, because it is easier than ever to roll up a product. Is it that you need capital to do more with that, or for marketing, or for staff, or what? I think knowing what the capital is super useful, and also knowing whether you have a business that's capable of venture scale versus something that could be just a really good, profitable little business. That's also, again, a very deliberate choice.
Yeah, fabulous. Yeah, I think what really comes out in this whole conversation this morning is that you guys have got this amazing background in IT, so you understand the what I would describe as the software development lifecycle, and you also understand the startup development lifecycle, which is the validation of the commercial viability of a problem and a product, and you've really put that into play to go on a journey, and you're partway through that journey. You sort of know where you're at and where you're not. You're doing experiments that are cost efficient. Your rate of conversations is really high. I think if we looked at what's it costing you to run these experiments and learn, I suspect that would come out to be a pretty efficient kind of thing. So it's a great role model, I think, for our founder community. We use this this process that we call the disruptive innovation journey, which is the 10 steps. And I think you guys have done a great job at, just because of your backgrounds, your amazing background, of understanding this intuitively. And you're one of those customers that probably don't need a LeapSheep because of all of your experience, and you've kind of got this. But for other people that are still trying to figure this out, I think what you've taken us through is sort of the 4 major steps of getting to product market fit, which is all this pre-revenue market validation. Get out there, have conversations, know the problem space really well, validate demand before you start working on supply. And then the second step of the process is then start validating the demand that the customers have told you is actually there in reality. Sometimes that doesn't really match up when you actually roll your sleeves up and start doing things. And people say, yeah, I know I asked for that, but I didn't expect when I got it, it would be like that. So you're sort of going through that phase. And now you're in this third phase, which I'd call the product market fit validation stage, where you're building out this new platform. It's much more scalable. It's much more complete. Much more focused on a tighter set of customers. Because, of course, when you start this journey and you say the definition of a customer is much wider than it is now. And so everything's sort of shifting and changing. So it's just been fabulous to chat to you guys and go through that journey, because it's such a good example of what we're advocating in terms of best practices, which for founders is so hard for them to get this overall view. And I think, Dane, you said earlier that it's those 6 things that you don't know, the unknown unknowns. You've got like 12 of the things that you need to do, but it's the 6 ones that you don't even know that are a thing that are going to catch you out, right? I think you guys are such a good example of methodically using process to validate building a business model, not just building a piece of technology and a product.
No, I appreciate
I
it.
think having the right mentors or experts to call on to build those apps is just such a shortcut. Like, if you do it all yourself and try and wing it, particularly if you're going first time round, that can be a really slow and really expensive way to go through the process. It
really can. Look, I thought I'd pivot to a couple of questions that came in before the show. Let's just have a look at some of these and see if there's something that you can respond to. What's the fastest way to prove tech maturity to investors without hiring expensive consultants? And I guess this is from a non-technical founder. I don't know Matt, whether he's technical or not, but I certainly see a lot of people like Matt asking me the question. I'm a non-technical founder, and I need to prove that I can do this. You got any thoughts on that?
So I guess it depends on the question. Is the question in relation to the product that they're building, or kind of their capabilities? Because I think
I would, having seen this question asked in different ways, I would interpret this as we know there's a problem. Like, it's probably someone that's got deep understanding the problem space and is now trying to bring the technology to solve that and scale that solution.
Yeah. I mean, I think from our experience talking to loads of investors from a tech DD perspective, you stack up, that's great. But I think for really early stage, a lot of the time, even the VCs don't care about the quality of your technology unless you're in some deep tech piece. They're backing you and your ability to build that. And they know that you're very early stage, so the tech's not great yet. They're giving you the capital to solve that. So I think that the answer to that question depends on the stage of investor. If you're a Series A or B, there's probably a lot more of that where you do absolutely need frameworks like StackUp and should have that stuff covered. Very early stage pre-seed seed, you might be more about your credentials personally and the product.
But in answer to the fastest way to do it, that's why we built StackUp. You could go and spend 50, 60 grand on a consultant like me to come in and do it, or you could spend half an hour doing it and you get all these insights for a fraction of the cost, 20 times faster. That's why we built it. So for people like this who can't afford the consultants, but as Dane says, it's not necessarily applicable when you're really, really early stage.
So you guys are really, and I guess this is part of your challenge, is you productize something which is traditionally seen as a consulting gig.
Yes, yeah.
And
that realistically, the alternatives are consultant or do it internally yourselves. The moment a business brings in a consultant and they've got an existing tech leader, it's kind of like that's the death knell for the tech leader, because if you bring in a consultant, it means you've lost trust within the tech leader. So we do it in a frictionless way that's independent, it's unbiased. Tech leader still on board. It's a much cleaner and simpler way to achieve a much better outcome.
100%. All right, one more question before we wrap up from Ethan from Hobart. How do you approach balancing innovation with risk in fast-paced environments, especially when scaling teams and infrastructure? And I'd love to hear your view about what you're doing now with the size of your team that you've got today versus how you would have approached this even a couple of years ago. Thinking about that.
So my answer to that one, again, I'm going to use the word which I've used many times, is being very deliberate about how you do it, and balance between the two is knowing what you're doing, why you're doing it, and eyes wide open that this is what it means for us in the future. So be very, very deliberate about everything that you do, and don't just do it because that's not a good reason to do something, right? Hope is not a good strategy. So have a plan, and a plan A and a plan B and a plan C that goes, well, we'll try that. If that doesn't work, we've got this alternative. But everything is deliberate.
And I think it differs based on industry too. If you're in healthcare providing cancer results to patients, you've got to be very different to if you've got a consumer mobile app that does something that's fun but not that not people's health doesn't depend on. You have a very different approach.
Great advice. Look, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to chat to you. Your journey's fabulous, and wish you all the best. Thanks so much for joining us. I've got to find an excuse to get you back on at some point in the future and hear how the journey's going. Look, for those people that want to connect with you, they can reach out to you. You've got a couple of QR codes to get access to, I think, to your LinkedIn. And of course, for people that are interested in StackUp, can you give us sort of your 30-second sales pitch for who's an ideal customer for you right now at this point in the business, and what's the ideal problem that they've got that you solve?
So I think anyone with a business that's worth protecting and scaling, that wants to understand and improve their tech function 20 times faster than using a consultant. There's a free way to trial it. So if you jump to stackup.tech, you can jump in, do the assessment, get some really useful results, and improve faster than you could in any other way.
And try the call agent. Try to have a go with the calling agent.
It sounds awesome. I'm gonna give that a go. That's pretty cool. Thanks so much, guys. Well, I'm excited to say on the next live stream, we've got a fabulous guest on, Tim Kelly. He's an aerospace engineer and social entrepreneur. We work with him as part of our work with the University of the Sunshine Coast, the Space to Sea program up there. And it's going to be great to have Tim on talking about some of the great things that are happening in the innovation system in Queensland, and also some of the great opportunities in terms of in the aerospace and defence sector. So looking forward to that one. And then, of course, finally, if you're a startup founder and you would like a level of clarity to really understand how to use your time and capital to not create just a really successful product, but a really successful business model, LeapSheep can assist you with our Startup Builder strategy session. It's the best 3 hours you'll spend getting a better understanding of exactly how to build your startup using a lot of the lessons that we've learned today from Dane and Andy. Get that understanding, and we can give that to you in 3 hours. If you're not quite ready for that, just reach out and have a chat. Love listening to founders, hearing about your vision and your story, and perhaps help point you in the right direction. Once again, thanks so much to Dane and Andy, and look forward to the next show. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.